website so people can view it later. And if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat throughout the session, and we'll bring them to the attention of our presenter, Molly, and do our best to address all the questions in this session. You can go to the next slide, Molly. Thank you. So we want to quickly introduce ourselves. And first, I want to start with just acknowledging that the Portland metro area rests on traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Wasco, Hulett, Willamette, Clackamas, and bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. Indigenous people have created communities and summer encampments to harvest and enjoy the plentiful natural resources of the area for the last 11,000 years. We want to recognize that Portland today is a community of many diverse Native peoples who continue to live and work here. We respectfully acknowledge and honor all Indigenous communities, past, present, future, and are grateful for their ongoing and vibrant presence. And now I'd like to introduce ourselves. So I'm Shelley Johnson. I'm the Kindergarten Inclusion Program Coordinator. I have two sons, one of whom has Down syndrome. And so these topics are near and dear to my heart and lived every day. And particularly the topic that we're discussing today is a resource that we use, on the regular throughout our day. I am a late 40s, almost 50-year-old woman with blonde, shoulder length, straight hair. And this evening I'm wearing a black shirt with red dots on it. And I'm wearing glasses, and behind me is a brown wall with some photos, tropical photos on it. And so I welcome you all. I'm happy to be here this evening with you and learning alongside you and sharing this information. So Maria, would you like to go next?
Yes. Oh, there, I muted myself. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Maria Rangel, and I'm the Bilingual Programs Coordinator. And this is one of my favorite topics. I have 3 children. They all have unique needs. And my daughter that, my oldest daughter, she's 16 and she experiences Down syndrome.
I just started
her number one method of communication is through AAC, augmented and alternative communication.
I don't care about phenomenon.
And she uses an iPad with the communication app, and that's her number one way to communicate. And so I'm excited to share some of my experience, help answer any questions, help support Molly and everyone. So welcome, and I think Angela is next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angela Frome. I'm the Senior Program Director for Northwest Disability Support. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a middle-aged white woman with brown hair. I wear glasses, and I have some pictures in the background. I'm the mother of 3 kids that all bring me to the work. Our organization supports over 4,000 local families in the Portland Metro, Southwest Washington, and really delighted to have Molly here with us tonight as our content leader. This is an exciting topic, and thanks for everybody for being here tonight.
I think I'm next.
My name is Joycey, and I have 2 children. One of them experiences Down syndrome. Her name is Violet, and she's 5 years old. I am the community outreach coordinator at NWDSA, and I enjoy all the work that we do, and I'm hoping that we can get a lot of good information out of this session today. Thank you.
Molly, could you go to the next slide? So this evening we have Molly Hulett with us. So happy to have her and her experience. And Molly lives in Oregon City and is the parent to 2 children, one of whom experiences Down syndrome. And Molly has actually been through our kindergarten inclusion cohort. So she's experienced this whole webinar series in person in the past, and she's currently an early intervention, early childhood special education inclusion coach at Clackamas ESD. So Molly, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here tonight. Do you have this poll? Is it a, you're muted.
I do. I'm sorry. I forgot that we had a poll. So, so to start off the webinar, we'd love to, if you would just answer this poll, reflect a little bit on your knowledge of visual supports. So somebody logged me out. I am so sorry. Yeah, I'm not able to access the poll actually right now, so we will just skip that. But if you want to just internally reflect on your knowledge of visual supports and communication methods, communication supports, and where your learning is there, maybe like thinking about on a scale of 1 to 5, like 1 being knowing almost nothing and 5 being expert. You could go ahead and type that into the chat, and then we'll kind of have a sense of where everybody is. Thank you. Yeah, so it looks like we have a wide variety of people with little to much experience. And I think wherever you fall in that range, there's going to be some good information here for you tonight, some good ideas of things to do and things to try. All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
So first, I'd like to just start with what brings you here today. If you're a mother or father of a child or a professional, if you could just put that or something you would like to learn in the chat. Right, someone's must be a classroom teacher using visuals daily, parent engagement, special ed teacher, mother. Great, so lots of different backgrounds today. So really the objectives today are to understand a variety of ways visuals can be used to support all children's learning. And one thing I would like to challenge you to do is I'm going to share a lot of different visuals and reasons we use the visuals, but I'd really like you to really focus in and maybe think about one new thing you might start doing or you'd like to try within kind of, if you're a mother, if you're a parent, what within routines of your home, or maybe if you're in a classroom, think about a strategy or something you would like to do. We're going to talk also about how you can partner with your child's school in that IEP process, and visual supports in the IEP. So this is one of my favorite videos on how we, it's just a quick snapshot to think about how we use visuals.
We use visuals every day. Icons, traffic signs, calendars, clocks, maps, recipes, grocery lists, and more. For students, visuals provide a form of communication that lasts much longer than spoken language. Examples include visual schedules, time timers, scripted routines, checklists, and visual reminders. Visuals literally help your students see what you mean. For students who are visual thinkers, have language processing delays, are easily distracted, anxious, or English language learners, visuals provide comfort, predictability, and access to the same information as their peers. People often think it is helpful to repeat instructions and provide verbal prompts, but more words can simply mean more language to process. Imagine getting to a vending machine and the visuals have been removed. Don't worry, Vinny will tell you everything you need to know.
Nachos, chips, cookies, Smarties, M&Ms, coffee crisp, Babe Ruth.
What if the visuals on your phone were removed and replaced with someone to remind you of everything verbally?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, weather, calendar. Oh, you have one appointment today.
Suppose we removed all visuals from your recipe book. Fortunately, we have your mother-in-law on standby.
Ground beef, onion, and oil in a frying pan. Stir to break up the meat as it browns.
We all need visuals in our life. Using more visuals throughout the day will help all students. Visuals encourage independence and inclusion. They reduce anxiety and frustration. They support self-regulation and universal design for learning. Visuals, a simple, convenient alternative to repeating yourself all day. Visuals. I see what you mean.
NorthstarPaths.com.
So, like they talked about, that visual supports are really just a strategy that includes concrete items, pictures, symbols, just to support or break down tasks for anybody, children, adults. How annoying would it be if your phone was continuing to say what you were doing? They just are really the foundation of learning. And it's so important to know that visual supports really help everyone. Children, learning or speaking another language, children who maybe are strong visual learners, children with diverse learning needs, and really everybody benefits from visual supports. One important thing to know as you think about your child or the students you work with is to really understand what connects or what level they need as you're making or thinking about the visuals. So the first kind of stage is like a real object. So that's the object stage where maybe you have the actual object. When my son was young, to get him to transition to brushing his teeth, we often brought the object of the toothbrush to him and he would know that was the direction I gave. And then the other areas are a photo, so like a real picture, a clip art picture. Sometimes then you can go to simple, more line drawings, and eventually it can lead to text. So if a child's reading, it can lead to like a checklist or different processes with that word. So like that video talked about, there's so many benefits to visual supports, building independence, building language skills, both their understanding and expression of language, learning new skills. Visuals are static, so they're always there. So if processing takes a little extra time, that visual is always there. They also help children understand and remind of expectations. They act as a reminder to maybe reteach appropriate behavior, and they really foundationally support early literacy development. As you'll see examples, there's always a picture with a word attached to it, and often when using visuals, you use the left to right presentation, so they're learning those early literacy skills. So next, we're going to kind of go through some examples. So an example of why is helping a child learn a new routine. So that could be maybe a child has not rode the bus before and they don't know what to do. So a visual sequence of what that new routine is can really help students. Or the bottom one is an example of maybe they're new to a classroom and they don't know what the sequence of that morning routine and arrival is. So sequencing out can really help. Learning the bathroom routine, all the steps and sequences can really support children. Another reason is to increase independence within those routines. So maybe building independence with a bathroom routine, taking a bath at night, breaking down that sequence and having that visual available gives adults the ability to point instead of, continually giving those verbal directions, and a child can look at it and see what's next and continue to build that independence. Another example is like a toothbrushing routine where that's posted on the mirror and the child can see. And to start with, they'll need some adult support to point, but eventually they can build that independence with that routine. Some other examples for school are maybe an art activity or, a sequence of what they're supposed to do when they arrive at school. So first they're going to cut, then they're going to glue, and then they're all done with the activity. This is an example of available on the website of a hand washing routine. So I think this came from the comics that were printed from Allborn Inn. And so, get the water, soap, scrub, sing a song, rinse, and do a clean hands dance. And these are available in English and Spanish on the website for free. So sometimes we'll use visuals to teach a skill we want them to learn. And this is really important when children maybe showing us through challenging behavior. So that behavior is always communication, and we really want to think about what that child is trying to communicate, or what skill that child may be important for them to learn. And visuals can be a powerful tool for decreasing challenging behavior and increasing some skills. So an example that I used with my son, still to this day as he's 12, is just some pictures of emotions. because he can communicate that with me, but not all the time. So having pictures of emotions, or if frustrated or upset, being able to communicate and show what they can do when they're frustrated or upset. Another example could be like maybe there's a student or a child who doesn't know what to do with blocks. Maybe they start by throwing blocks or hitting someone with blocks. So a visual like this, showing the child and working with the child on making a choice of what they can build, can help build those skills of playing with blocks. So another idea is teaching. So visuals can often be a great tool for teaching social skills. So using it to teach how to greet or, you know, have interactions can be a great, visuals can help build those friendship skills. And again, more friendship skills here is there's some example of visuals that you could have at mealtime. So if, you know, a child maybe can't communicate or ask questions, this can be a nice tool to use some visuals to help that child ask or answer questions and increase that social engagement and friendship skills. These are some examples of communicating, asking for a turn, and being able to point and communicate that.
And just as a segue, our next month's presentation is actually about behavior supports in inclusive classrooms, and this is such a key part of that. So I feel like this presentation and next month's presentation are so interlinked.
Just continuing on the different reasons why is really to help understand also the expectations or rules within a routine or kind of family or classroom. So these are the expectations, and even sometimes, you know, you've seen a lot of like visuals in sequence, but even just a picture of like, how do children know like they're supposed to raise their hand in a kindergarten classroom? So a teacher can say it over and over again, but saying it while showing a visual can really be powerful to help children learn some of these maybe new expectations in a large classroom. It's important also to know that like we can get fancy with using technology and getting clip art, but it can also be really simple. This is my son, and we did just a lot of real pictures of the different expectations, and he struggled with lining up at recess time. And so we took some different pictures of what he can do and the expectations of lining up and kind of put them all together to really help. And they would talk about it before he went outside. And it just helped engage and really look at those expectations. And he loved to see pictures of himself doing the, you know, expected thing. This is an example again of pictures, using pictures to talk about or lay out the expectations in class. So this was in, I think, first grade, and they took pictures and they shared it with us, and we would talk about, you know, you're sitting and reading a book, you're being responsible, tying it to the rules of the school, you're working hard. And so just, you know, taking a picture on a phone or iPad can really be a great tool to talk about those expectations. Another like really common thing is putting a stop sign on things when, you know, a child's running out the classroom door or getting into a space maybe they're not supposed to. Putting a stop sign and pairing your word with the visual of a stop sign can be powerful and help children understand that that is the expectation right now. Sometimes you can do something called scripted stories or social stories, and those really are visuals made into a book that really lay out the expectations or rules or just different sequences for kids. And we use scripted stories a lot for, like, you know, bathroom routine at school, how you're being, you know, laying out the rules, and some of those pieces. So these are visuals kind of molded into a story for a certain routine or expectation. And it's so important to remember that visuals always stay. Your words may go away quickly. It's a snapshot, but if you keep that visual there, and it really helps a child understand what's there, and they're allowed that time to process the verbal language that you just said. So another kind of deeper look at really, you can use visuals to enhance instruction and many times increase engagement. So this is really about just a deeper dive into, if you're learning about butterflies, you know, the life cycle, you can talk all you want about it, but if you add visuals, add objects, it really can enhance that instruction and increase that engagement for all kids in the classroom. So especially in a kindergarten, preschool or kindergarten classroom, you should really have these like concrete things, these visuals to really help as you're talking about a topic. These are some examples of, you know, things from Lakeshore, kind of more so, but being able to pair and engage with books is a great way. And it doesn't have to be fancy like this. It can be a copy of the book, and, you know, the child's putting this on or has them, or you're telling a story about a caterpillar, they get to hold the caterpillar while you're reading the story.
I would add too, Molly, to that, like we've talked about before too, is that oftentimes too, having that ability to know what's coming that they can contribute. You think about carpet time or circle time in kindergarten, you know, how if you, or preschool, you feel like if you don't have an opportunity to contribute, or you don't have your game on, basically, when your turn comes, that can be really frustrating. Or sometimes there's behavior because you know that, you know, you have not been given the tools you need to feel like you're a contributor in the group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, Angela. And to kind of build on that, sometimes we would just send pictures to the teacher that really connect to, like, my son's life experience. So this is an example of, they had talked about bees and, you know, a variety of insects, and they were doing the more deep dive into bees. And my parents had a beehive, so I just sent the teacher pictures, and then, you know, it really connected to what he was and his experiences, and those were some of the most impactful learning that he would have, because he was engaged and it was relevant to his life. So pictures, just even emailing them to the teacher with your intent, or if you're able to print them off, can be powerful to connect. another important thing is that often in classrooms, you know, they'll have conversations about what did you do on the weekend, or, you know, relative to sharing. And my son struggled to share those ideas. So we would often send just a picture, because that was like every Monday they had a topic at their group time where they talked about, shared one thing they did on the weekend. And so we would just send pictures, either print it off or send it to the teacher so she could help facilitate that. And that really leveled the playing field for him and really got his peers engaged, and showed, and it also it helped build that community for him. And another just pretty, you know, low tech, simple way, I think, Shell, you were talking about this, we're just having a notebook, and even you don't have to be an artist, but drawing what you did at school so the child can communicate that, and you drawing a picture of what they did on the weekend or the night before can be a really low tech. Do you want to share?
Yeah, we used to just have, I was trying to find one of our actual notebooks, but I couldn't. But we used to just have like a little, I think it was actually even smaller than this size. And we would just write, you know, the date and draw a little stick figure picture of what we did that weekend, and write a, you know, a couple words caption. And because my son was nonverbal until he was about 5, it was very difficult for people to understand him, and he still uses an AAC device mostly, but that was just a great way to super easy send to the school or to the preschool what had happened. And they would also do the same. They would, not every day, but many days, they would do a short little drawing of something that happened that he did during his day. And that really allowed him to be able to communicate to us too. It gave us some way in the evening to have a little conversation with him of, oh, I see you played with Play-Doh, or you were playing in the sandbox today, or whatever was going on. So it just gave us a little entry point to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kids don't care that you're not an artist. So stick figures they love. And even if the, you know, Play-Doh looks not like Play-Doh or whatever, they don't care. It's really about that representation and that communication. So any questions kind of about visual supports and routines? We're going to continue talking about augmentative communication and then the IEP. But I'd like to pause and see if there's any questions.
I saw somebody asked earlier about resources for getting images for creating these communication boards. And Molly does have a few slides later on with a whole list of lots of different resources. And we will also be sharing those resources out in a separate PDF document, you know, after that we'll email after this presentation. But yes, there's lots of resources out there. And again, like Molly said, like often just drawing your own, like we have whiteboards throughout our house, and we just write what's going on that day and draw a little picture and write a word or two next to it, and little, you know, tick boxes if it's some, you know, kind of a checklist of things, or and it's just, and that way it's super you know, it's very adaptable. So if I don't have to go and find the clip art picture of we're making cookies, I can just draw some cookies, and I don't need to have a clip art. But I do think the clip art can be useful if you are, you know, doing a more static routine like the hand washing or toileting or things like that. There are some nice clip art and other visuals available.
Yeah, and I mean, I would like to add, I love low tech and high tech, and one of the things that helped me with my daughter was that I always carry like a little notepad in my purse, like little, and she had, because now she's a pro, she she had a hard time transitioning like from one thing to another. So we were at the park and she would not want to leave the park. And so I would have to kind of do a first this, then that. And so then I would help her just by putting me first. We're at the park and then we're going to get in the car and go home. And I would just do like a tree and that would mean the park. And then I would just draw my car and say, and then we're going into the car. That really helped her with the transitions of first we're doing this and then we have to do that. And that was just like I'm not a artist, so it was just my scribbles. And but for her it meant so much because she was able to relate something visual to what was happening then and now and then what needed to happen next.
I have a question. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So my question is, as far as visual supports, resources, are these the same kinds of things that perhaps would be used for lower grade levels? I'm not a teacher, I'm a case manager, I don't have my own children, but I'm just wondering, when it comes to age groups, are these types of things used for tiny learners? And if so, that might be a good place for us to look. I don't know.
So this tool really is for all learners at all ages. And specifically, like my son is 12 and has, we started with lots of visual supports, like the pictures that I saw, but now he benefits from more written checklists and language and does well with those instead of me telling him over and over again to clean his room and then do the dishes. So it's really specific to the individual child's needs, but we all use visuals every day. So it's really according to what that child needs, and is not age level specific.
Okay, and then is PECS a system that is commonly used?
Yeah, so that's where we're headed with.
Okay.
So augmentative and alternative communication is something that some children may want to utilize. So that is typically for children that maybe don't yet have verbal language, or maybe they struggle to put more words together and need some support with that, or they really need that augmentative communication in order for them to engage and participate in the grade level content. And so this really should be focused on the child's individual needs, and should be done in coordination with a speech language pathologist who has that expertise, and really should be analyzed and looked at within the child's day. So what do they need to engage and participate at school and or home, and most of the time both. I'm going to share a few examples, but it's so individualized. You really need to work with your team and or the speech pathologist. So sometimes there's something called POD, which is a communication book that has layers and lots of, and my son used this for a while before we went to a higher tech. You had mentioned PECS, and so PECS is a system that can be used. This is just a picture exchange communication system. And I'm not going to go into a lot of depth because it's really something you should work on and see with your child's team and the speech therapist, and figure out what's right for the individual child. There are other things like core boards. So this is a specific board that can be utilized to enhance that communication. And then, of course, we have high-tech options all around us. So these are just some different examples of some different apps that can be loaded onto an iPad for communication, or there's different things like in the bottom here, a Go Talk 9, that you can use different layers and pieces to communicate. So if, you know, and my son still uses assistive technology, it's just so important to know to work with your team. And as part of your IEP trend in that transition meeting, you can request an assistive technology evaluation be added. It's not necessarily on you to be able to provide the iPad and provide the technology and apps. The school can utilize that, or there are often grants available if you work with a speech therapist.
One thing I want to add is that most kids, individuals that experience a disability are connected to their developmental disabilities county services. And I know that my daughter, that's how we got her first iPad and her first communication app that she used, because the communication app that she uses cost us a lot of money. So I couldn't purchase the iPad and then the communication app. So her services funded that for her so she could have that at home.
And there are, so that's the augmentative alternative communication, and the visuals just are great, but sometimes there are different apps too. So these are a few of the different apps that are available that are pretty reasonable. I think there's some free first then visual schedules. ChoiceWorks is an app that you can put together a schedule, and the child can like move things over when they've completed it. Pictello and Special Stories can help you take a picture and add and make a little book about a routine. And one of the easiest is actually really just to use your phone, and you can set up your phone to be able to like add the pictures in a folder and just kind of go through the pictures. So there are some different apps too that you can load to your phone or an iPad to. So how are visuals a part of the IEP? And the main, a few things to think about is really, my son still has visual supports on his accommodations page of his IEP. And AAC can go on there. You can also add those visual supports or under your parent concerns. So I know I still to this day say things like, one of my concerns is that the visuals or my son is able to communicate his wants and needs that align with the curriculum. So you can add that into your concerns. If you can also add it to your child's portfolio in the What Works area. You can request that evaluation as well. So one thing to know is how you can support your child now. And I'd encourage you all to think about what works for your child. If you're in preschool, get copies of things that maybe were working in preschool. Use them at home over the summer to really help them understand routines and how to utilize those visuals.
Molly, I might add too, choosing things, and I'm thinking low tech as well, choose things that are really important to your child, or that, that I think about, we used to go grocery shopping and we might cut out pictures from the ads or from cereal boxes or fruit or different things like that. And you can laminate them, stick them on a keychain. They were able to hold them. They were able to navigate it, things at school, or, maybe I'm feeling like, sad or happy or whatever, using icons and using images and pictures of things that are important to them, because some of them can be kind of abstract too. So that felt helpful. When we were thinking of, pre iPads and all that stuff. And sometimes those things get broken too. So having some things that can get tossed down and it's not a problem.
Yeah. Thanks, Angela. So, any specific questions? We're going to talk a little bit about how you can make it and some resources for making them yourselves, but I'd love to see if there are any other questions.
I have a question. Well, my daughter, she's 5, and we're definitely working on the transitioning. I haven't started the visual part because I was just kind of pushing her, hoping, that we will get more words out by this time. So she has tried a iPad with a lot of like the different apps and all that. But I haven't seen her really interested on the app ways of using it, which I'm not sure. I don't know if she's just not interested in the iPad or she's just not. So I don't know. I'm just kind of, I guess my question just will be like, what will be some good ways to kind of get her more interested, because we get it through Shiners, and so they give us pretty good like applications for the speech communication part, but she's just not interested in it. Like she's just
It
either
takes
English
some-
and Spanish. And the thing is, I always say my daughter that she's trilingual. I mean, she has signs, she understands and speaks both English and Spanish. So the beginning it was kind of frustration. Do I just want to keep her in the Spanish? Do I just want to keep her in English? And then when they introduced the iPad, it was kind of like, okay, we can do this, because I know she has a lot to say. But it's been hard to get her to work with the iPad.
Yeah, so I would go back to what Angela said earlier about what are the things that she loves and like what are her interests. Because my son didn't like to communicate what everybody else wanted him to communicate. He wanted to share things about what he did, or share his favorite TV shows and be able. So I really encourage you to think about what she loves and what she is excited to, what her interests are, and start there, because you can really build around that. Because if her speech therapist is wanting her to communicate the food she wants or whatever, and she just really doesn't care about food, or she'll eat whatever's in front of her, that might not be the place to start.
Yeah.
We
And
also,
sorry.
Go ahead, Maria.
Sorry. So I just wanted to add to Molly's response, because I kind of have the similar situation with my daughter. She is also bilingual, Spanish, English. And so at first I was so focused on getting any verbal communication out of her that I thought that if I started using any assistive technology, it was going to take away from that. But little did I know that when I started using the communication app, it was modeling the words for her, and she started having more words and forming sentences verbally. So that's like a common thing that I know that it's on a lot of our minds, where it's like, if I implement this support, is it going to take away from her ever saying words or whatnot? It actually more. And another thing is that she was at first, she didn't take interest in her iPad and her communication app, but I've began to make it a form of communication for everyone in our house. And she has her sibling that has always been her best friend. And I would sit them down and I would tell my son, they're 11 months apart, and I will say, hey, Gio, can you sit down with Ruby for 5 minutes and have a conversation with her on the iPad? I want you using the communication app so that she sees that you're using it, and she starts to see it as a form of communication that she can access. And sure enough, her seeing it being modeled by me, by her brother, by people around her, she started taking it as, oh, this is a way of how I can communicate. So the more you do it and the more normalized that you do it within your family, I truly believe that then she'll start picking up that it's a method of communication she can have access to.
And just adding to kind of the multilingual aspect of it, my son is also, I used to say he was trilingual, German, English, and ASL. And we absolutely had the app, and we had on his AAC words in German and words in English. And it was not a problem for him at all. It didn't slow down. Like Maria said, all the research shows that AACs only enhance verbal communication. They don't take away from verbal communication at all. So if you have a bilingual child, certainly, right, because we wanted him to be able to use the app with my family and me, and be using the English words, and be able to use it with my husband's family using the German words. And so it was important for him to be able to do both. And then the other thing that helped us, definitely work with your speech language pathologist, because they can give you ideas of activities to do using the iPad, and they should be working with you and with your child on using the iPad in their speech therapy sessions. But we also, we would choose like, oh, we're going to really focus on using the iPad at mealtime, rather than trying to like use it all the time. We picked some specific, like, we're going to use it at dinner, and we're going to have the page open that has like the favorite foods, and he can use that to request, do you want milk or apple juice or orange juice, right? And we also would use it for like playing games. Like there was one favorite game that he liked that was a kind of German version of Candyland game. And so we had we set up a page with our speech therapist in the app that had all the kind of phrases and things that you might say while playing that game. And so it had the colors, it had your turn, my turn. It also had some fun phrases on it, like no cheating, and yay, congratulations, and things, and like, oh no, right, if you had to go back or whatever. And so really being sure that that tool is also fun to use for your child, right? That it doesn't just have like apples and oranges and bananas, but that it has like, hey, wait for me and stop. And when they get to a certain ages, has funny jokes on it. And so that it is like a really valuable tool, because that's how we communicate, is with saying all those fun phrases and things. So
I think Addie had her hand up. Addie, did you have a question, or did you get your question answered?
I think I saw Aide had her hand up, and then it went down. Did you have a question?
Are there any other questions anyone has?
I have one more question. I can't figure out how to raise my hand. I'm interested in the language thing. I'm a bilingual case manager, and I studied a lot of languages. I know that flashcards are kind of helpful. I'm wondering about the transition into academic pursuits, like vocabulary building and learning other, relationships to images to learning. Is that something that, at what point does that come in, and are flashcards used for kids that need visuals?
Yeah, so kind of depending upon the child, some of that vocabulary could be within the iPad app, or if you're talking about the life cycle of the butterfly at circle, that the child should have access to some way to communicate, and answer those questions. So it might be, on the iPad or the technology, or it might be in a low tech kind of form where they can engage in that. So yes, vocabulary is important to be within that, and allows that child to connect and opportunity to engage with that.
Yeah, and I would just add that with my daughter being bilingual, she actually uses 2 communication apps, and one of them is bilingual. And on the image, it says the word in Spanish and English, because there's some words, there's like 20 words that she only wants to say in Spanish and in English, vice versa. So so she has access to that. If she wants to say water, or if she wants to say agua, then she can just hit the picture of water and it will say both of the words for her.
All right, any other questions? We'll move on. So
I do see a question, Molly.
Okay.
Christina, is it? If you want to unmute.
Yeah, the gentleman that spoke about some of the words and flashcards with my students. I have both Down syndrome and my own daughter being Down syndrome. I have children with autism as well, and they're also very, very visual. And so this communication is vital for them as well. And a lot of times our students tend to are unable to label, or, and so learning vocabulary, being able to model that and showing the picture, pointing to an object with it, saying it, modeling it, helping them understand it, they will then begin to label those things and gain the vocabulary actually quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah, making that association was helpful to me. The other question is are signs like the ASL? I mean, is there a standard set of those? And then how is that taught, or what kind of resources can families use? Because I work with families. A lot of the kids are nonverbal. I don't know what they're being told as far as how to learn those signs, or what is standard in the classroom, or like as an augmentative form of communication, because there are just so many, and they pick them up along the way. But is there some kind of resource or a list that I can find or use?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Molly.
There are lots of resources for different signs just on the internet. So, and there's also some sign like dictionaries where it actually has a video of someone like doing the sign, because a picture of a sign is not always clear because there is typically movement, or as you're talking. But Shell, do you have a specific?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, again, similar to using assistive technology, AAC communication, sign language does not, it's been researched, sign language does not take away from the child's using verbal language. It actually enhances their use of verbal language, which oftentimes people think the opposite. It is kind of encouraged to teach children the actual American Sign Language, or I'm sure there's a Spanish version of sign language, and perhaps there's Mexican Spanish version of sign language is probably different than the whatever Costa Rican version of sign language, but British Sign Language is different than American Sign Language. And so we do encourage families to use the language that is widely used within their region. And some people mentioned in the chat, Signing Time is a great video series, and it's available in libraries and lots of places. And so that's a great tool to point families to. It's super engaging, very useful for all ages. And yeah, and if you have more questions, that's a little bit outside the scope of this presentation, but if you have more questions about any of that, certainly reach out to us and we can give you resources, point you in the right direction so you can serve your families.
Thank you.
So I am going to share a resource in the chat, but I want to first show you how to utilize it. So there are lots of places to get visuals if you would like to print and have copies. So I created this resource guide, and it's just a slideshow, and you just click on the link and it brings you to a website that has a free download. This is a story about a scripted story about brushing teeth, and for Spanish, there's a Spanish link to most of these resources as well. So there's a Spanish same story about brushing your teeth and kind of the sequence of that. So there's, so I will put this in the chat for those. I believe it's ready to be, if anybody can click on it and explore those resources. But one thing to know, and then there are a couple websites that have lots of free printables. There's a Head Start Center for Inclusion. There's a California Inclusion, which has lots of different printables. And there's a website called National Center for Pyramid Model Innovation that has lots of free things, free resources in Spanish and English. So those are my top 3 go-to, but Pinterest has tons of stuff. There's lots and lots of resources available.
And these are the resources that I mentioned we'll be sending out to all of you too.
Yeah. So one thing to know is that you don't have to have a printer. You don't have to, you can make your own. So if you can use a laminator, Amazon has laminators, like little laminators for $20. I think I've had my laminator and the sheets available. But you can also go to Dollar Tree and get packing tape. So that clear packing tape can be used to kind of make a picture more durable. As you're thinking about the individual child, you really want to break down the task and focus on what you want the child to do and your goal. If it's build independence in the bathroom, what steps, what pictures do you need? And always pair the picture you're presenting with the written word. Even if your child's not reading yet, we want to pair that for that early literacy. And it can be just handwritten. Sometimes even just using Post-it notes are a great way to create a little schedule or drawings. I often have those available. And like we showed you, you can draw just in a simple notebook. And one other things to consider is really thinking about size. So sometimes if a child has vision concerns, you might need to make the picture bigger or have more contrast, kind of thinking about their needs with vision. And really thinking about what stage your child's in, if they need the real picture, if the line drawings or clip artwork, and then also thinking about any like motor needs. So can, you know, are they able to do Velcro and you have that pincher grasp to pick it up and take it off, or you know, they might need things just in different, presented in different ways. To make it yourself, like we talked about, you can search on Google, you can use your phone, you can use a notebook, you can drag pictures into a Word document to create those visuals if you need a printer. And one of the other things to note too is if you don't have a printer, it is a good opportunity sometimes to use your local library as a tool to be able to print, sometimes for free. You kind of want to check that out in your area. Do you think we have time for this, Shell, or should we?
I think this is going to have to be a take-home exercise. Yeah, so we had planned to do an activity with you and have you go into breakout rooms, but we've had lots of great questions. And so I would just encourage you to, I'm not sure what happened to the screen sharing.
Sorry, I skipped the slides. So it just.
So to encourage you to think about, and maybe we can take a minute or two right now if you want to just think about a routine or a sequence that you might like to create a visual support for your child, and just go through those questions about that. So Molly has some great questions here of how would you like your child to be more independent at it?
Yeah, so you know, you could take a picture of this with your phone if you want to think about these questions, but to start, you really want to pick like one routine or one kind of situation at home or at school, and then you know, kind of build that skill from that routine. So, you know, what pictures do you need? What could help build the skills? What kind of pictures are best for your child? And then kind of get your list together and search or draw, use Post-it notes, draw, put the word up and be able to kind of put those pieces together.
Obviously, depending on the age, but I remember also I'd do reverse. I'd have my child make one for me, you know, based on the things that they think I'm interested in, or the things I want, you know, that they want me to know that they, you know, see. So that was kind of fun because then they're totally excited, engaged, because it's not really about them necessarily, but a way that they can have some control.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's also a great place to engage your old, you know, maybe siblings, right? Like older siblings that really like to do art and like to make, you know, do craft projects. Like it's kind of a fun project to think about, like, how do I actually, like, how do I get dressed? What are the steps in getting dressed? And what could that look like? Yeah. And I just wanted to mention that if you want support in doing this, right, if you're trying to figure out a routine and what are the steps and how do I break it down and, you know, how does this all work? That, you know, we provide that. That's the kind of support that we provide through Northwest Disability Support. And so you're welcome to contact us for support on that. And we're going to give you some information about how to contact us and what those opportunities are.
Are there any other questions?
Right. Thank you so much, Molly. So we did have another poll, which unfortunately I don't have access to, but if you want to just think for yourself, how your learning has, what your level or how much you've learned, I guess, through this presentation. If you've learned something, you could, like on a scale of 1 to 5, like 1, my knowledge has stayed about the same. 5, like I learned a lot. We'd love to see where your learning is in this topic, and you can go ahead and post those in the chat. Great. So some people really learning a lot through this. I think this is a great topic, and it's a really good one to revisit periodically and remind yourself, oh, right, yeah, I could just create draw something for this, or yeah, that routine that we're kind of struggling with. Let's see if we can bring in a visual support there. So this is a useful one to kind of circle back around to. And so I just wanted to, as I mentioned, we provide IEP support, including on topics such as visual communication, visual supports. And so you can contact either Maria, especially if you're wanting Spanish support, Maria Rangel, or you can contact myself, Shelley, and our contact information is there. We also, every Thursday afternoon from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we have a drop-in Zoom support. And you can register for that by going to the events calendar on our website. So that's abicommunity.org/events. And you can find that event every Thursday. And if you can't find it for some reason, just email us and we'll help you find it and get registered. And support is available also outside of that time, but that's when we have it pre-scheduled. And this webinar is part of a whole webinar related to our KIC program, which is our kindergarten inclusion cohort program. And you can see on this slide, we've already had several webinars earlier this year. And I just want to encourage you to mark your calendars for May 12th at 5 o'clock, when we'll be having our behavior supports and strategies webinar, which is also a hot topic. So I encourage you to come to that. And of course, you can register for that also on our website, on the abicommunity.org website, or you can always email us if you can't find that. And you'll get a reminder email to register for it as well, because you're now in our list. And someone asked, will there be the All Born In conference this spring, summer? No, there will not be one this year, but look forward to one in 2023 in spring. And I believe it's in May. Is that correct, Angela? May 2023?
Yeah, well, we don't have a definite yet, but please stay tuned. And if you sign up for this event, then you will automatically get email notification of upcoming events. So thank you. Yeah.
And then finally, there's going to be a survey when you exit this Zoom. And if you respond to the survey, you'll be entered to win this visual support tool. So this is a great one. I have this with my son, and it's super useful, very portable, and really useful to use. for all ages, but it will be a great entree into the visual support land. So yes, I see somebody asking about the recording. Yes, you will get, for those of you that were maybe late and missed the beginning of this presentation, you will get an email with a link to the recording of this session. So thank you all for coming. Really appreciate your attention and your time. And please fill out the survey so that we can make these events even better. And yeah, thank you so much. And we hope to see you at the May webinar on behavior. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.